This is ChemQuest 9 Average Atomic Mass by Alvin George. Before we start our lesson on average atomic mass, let's first use an analogy. So you're given a table with 5 test scores for student A and student B, and they're asking what is the average grade for each student. Now to find the regular average for each student, you simply have to add up each of the test scores and divide by 5 because there are 5 total tests taken. And you would do the same for student B. So for student A, you would have an average test score of 84.8. And for student B, you would have an average test score of 81.4. The next question is, if you know a student's average grade, can you tell what the student's individual test scores were? Explain. Um, well, the answer is no, because students may have the same average grade, but their individual scores may be different. All right, now suppose student C had an average of 83%. On each of his 5 tests, he scored either 65% or 95%. Which score occurred more often? Explain. Well, because the 83% is more close to the 95%, um, therefore you can say that the student scored 95% on his test more often just because the 95% is closer to the average of 83%. Now we're getting into the ideas of weighted averages, which leads up right into our unit of average atomic mass. So the teacher decides to weight test 5 40%, test 4 30%, and each of the other tests 10% of the final grade. What are the weighted averages of student A and student B? So to find a weighted average, all you have to do is change the percentage into a decimal, so divided by 100, and then multiplied by each of the scores. So for student A, you do zero point 0.4 times 81 because 81 was the score the student received for test 5. And then you just do that for every single test score, and then the weighted average for student A um, would be 85.1, and the weighted average for student B would be 78.5. And notice that you don't have to divide by 5 like you did for the regular average. All you have to do is make sure you multiply the percentage by each of the individual test scores. All right, now we're going to go back to our topic on average atomic mass. So neon has 3 different isotopes. Um, 90.51% are 19.992 AMU, 0.27% are 20.994 AMU, and 9.22% are 21.991 AMU. What is the average atomic mass of neon? So it's the same idea. Make sure you just change your percentages into decimals by dividing them by 100 and then multiplying each corresponding percentage with their atomic mass. And then you add them all up at the end and you get the average atomic mass of neon is 20.179 atomic mass units. Question 6. Chlorine 35 and chlorine 37 are both isotopes of chlorine. How many protons and neutrons are in each isotope of chlorine? Well, the 35 for chlorine 35 represents the mass number, and by looking at the periodic table, you know that the atomic number of chlorine, or the number of protons it has, is 17. Now, chlorine 37 has a mass number of 37, but it still has the same atomic number because it is still a chlorine atom. Now, remember the mass number includes the protons and the neutrons, so therefore the protons plus neutrons equals 35. The protons is the same exact thing as the atomic number, so the protons is 17. The neutrons is 35 minus 17, or 18. And the same goes for chlorine 37. You have the same number of protons because they're both chlorine atoms, and the neutrons would just be 37 minus 17, or just 20.